Welcome to From Root to Crown with Rebbe Gobel, your guide to self-discovery and personal growth. I'm your host and a certified trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, Reiki master healer, and intuitive guide. Join me as we explore spirituality, alternative healing, and tools like breathwork, human design, astrology, and meditation to help you lead a more balanced, aligned, and joyful life. Remember, you are your own teacher and medicine. Keep listening for practical tips to incorporate this week's insights and inspiration on your transformative journey. Welcome back to episode 4 of From Root to Crown with Rebbe Gobel. Today, we are going to talk about connecting to your intuition and how you can start to learn how to strengthen that connection to yourself and to your highest good, your inner source, your inner truth. Today, we are going to go over some ways that you can know and distinguish between anxiety and your intuition. I'm going to also give you a couple of exercises that you can do going forward over the coming days, weeks, and months to really flex this muscle to bring your intuition into your decision-making process. One of the first times I really started working with my intuition was actually through a coach that I worked with in, I want to call it 2016, roughly. And I came to this coach through the lens of wanting to get healthier, wanting to lose some weight, figure out why I had a slightly disordered relationship with food and eating. And one of the first lessons that we learned in the program that this coach took me through was that it's never actually just about the food. It's always about something deeper and something bigger. And what I personally uncovered is that I wasn't listening to my intuition. It was really one of the first times that I learned how to make a distinction between my intuition and my brain thinking wild thoughts and anxiety, along with external social pressures and societal cues and all of those things that wrap around our intuition and muddy the messages that we might think we're receiving from our intuition, but really it's got about 4 layers of fear and anxiety and cultural programming wrapped around it. So you're not actually getting the clear messages that you're seeking. So let's dive into some of the ways that I think about my thoughts and question my thoughts to figure out where it's coming from. Is it coming from an internal aligned place, or is this a thought that has some external programming in it? There's also, I want to back up a step and say there's a reason why this podcast started with the first 2 episodes that it did, the meat and potatoes episodes, let's say, of meditation and breath work. One of the key pieces in connecting to your intuition is having a practice that helps you quiet these external and internal influences of your mind. They're integral to give yourself the space to hear yourself and hear source in your life. And we're going to talk about practical ways to do that more than just giving lip service to it later in the show. So in 2021, we lost my father, and my parents lived on a large piece of property in Kansas City and kind of in the Kansas City area. And they had, my dad had been in a nursing home for almost a year, and my mom had been caring for the property by herself for a year. And really, it had been longer than that since my dad had really been able to care for it the way that it needed to be cared for. So we were in the process of trying to figure out, okay, what the next steps are. And a really great opportunity came up for both my mother and my grandmother to move from Kansas City to St. Louis, here where I live. They were going to be able to be in the same complex where there was a nursing home and also independent living. And I was going to be able to help care for my, at the time, 91-year-old grandmother and help my mom out quite a bit after my dad passed. And the opportunity came up somewhat suddenly after we lost my dad, and my mom was feeling really overwhelmed, and we kind of had to move fast on making a decision, and everything felt aligned. Certainly from my side, it did. But she was really struggling with making this big life-altering decision, and she didn't have her partner to bounce her thoughts off of anymore. And so she and I ended up sitting on the driveway in the car where we know many of life's serious conversations happen, and talking about how does she know whether it's fear or an anxiety or her intuition telling her which way to decide on whether this was the right opportunity for her to move, or now is not the right time and she should stay put. What I said to her then, and what I have said to clients and friends since then, and what I'll say to you here now, the first way that I distinguish between the two is noticing the intensity of the message. If it's your intuition, it's going to be a very subtle message. It's going to be a very calm message. It's going to be quiet, so to speak. It's just going to land with a solid knowing. And if it is anxiety or fear, the message intensity is going to increase because it needs to convince you that it is right, that thought is right. So in the instance of my mom moving, as our example here, what she was hearing was, oh my God, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. It's too fast. It's too soon. 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 And it got louder and louder and was like really trying to get her attention. Whereas when she was able to get quiet and step away from that, she could discern that there was a knowing inside her that landed and said, yes, this is going to be a lot of work. Yes, it's going to be scary, but this is the right opportunity for you. So paying attention to the intensity of the message is one of the first ways that you can distinguish between whether it's your intuition talking to you or your anxiety or fear or your brain having wild thoughts. The next thing that I want you to pay attention to is where in your body is the message coming from? Is it coming from your brain, or is it a more embodied feeling? Is it coming from your heart space? Is it coming from your gut? But is it coming from those deeper energies, or is it coming from your mind? Is it coming from that really shallow knowing that our minds have? Your consciousness only uses a fraction of the power of your mind. Most of what happens in your mind is subconscious. So where are you feeling this thought, this message? Where in your body is it coming from? And lastly, what is the focus of the message? This is similar to the first distinction that I made, but what is the focus of the message? Is it a negative outcome that gets more and more negative the more you think about it? Those are generally anxiety or fear driven. If the focus is on this is going to be amazing, this is aligned, this is right, again, it shouldn't need to convince you that it is the right way to go and the right thing to do. So what is the focus of this message? Is it just about all the bad things that can happen, or does it equally take into consideration all of the good outcomes, the best case scenario that could happen? If it only focuses on those negative outcomes without being able to take a step back and consider what could go right in the situation, the thought is probably fear-based or anxiety-based. The last trick that I will share with you here on how to distinguish between anxiety and your intuition is playing the game of, what if all of a sudden I was told that I couldn't make this decision? So Melissa Urban talks about this a lot. She's the founder of Whole30 and the author of a bunch of really great books, including the Book of Boundaries, which I highly recommend. If you haven't read, it's off the topic of intuition, but it's fantastic chef's kiss work. But she talks about, listening to her intuition and knowing what is or isn't right for her through the lens of her intuition quite a bit. And I love this practice that she uses where she allows herself to fully imagine whatever the choice is that's ahead of her, whether, let's say, she should take a new job. And that if she's trying to decide, should I take this job or should I not? She sits down and really allows herself to feel, what would it be like if they said, it's no longer an option for you? Somebody else took the job. It's no longer an option for you. Sorry. And she takes the time then to notice how she would feel. So if somebody told me that I couldn't take this job, they eliminated the position, whatever, and she's relieved, then she knows that she shouldn't take that job. But if she's disappointed and bummed, then she knows that she should take that job or pursue it or go after it, what have you. And I really love that exercise because when we have both choices available to us to move or to stay put, running it through the lens of the choice has just been taken out of your hands, now how do you react, is probably more telling than trying to figure out which option is better. So the next time you have an opportunity to make a choice, even if it's, do we eat out or stay in? Or do we go to New York for our vacation or California? Let's say all of a sudden we discover that all the Airbnbs in New York are shut down and New York is no longer an option. Are you really disappointed that now you have to choose California? Or are you bummed? How do you feel once New York is taken out of the equation? So use that practice to help you work through any of those large decisions. So let's talk a little bit about the techniques and practical ways that you can start to connect with your intuition. Again, you really have to create the space for these messages to land. And whether that's taking 2 deep breaths where you're allowing your shoulders to drop and calming the racing mind and getting into your body for just a second there. Or if you are going to make connecting with your intuition a larger practice, giving yourself that second in the moment before you make a choice to really check in with yourself is going to allow you to make aligned decisions as opposed to through those external lenses that we all have. What would a good girl choose to do? What would a good wife choose to do? What would a good mother choose to do? What would a responsible, I'm using air quotes here, what would a responsible adult choose to do? What would someone from my religious or cultural background choose to do? All of those are lenses and external frameworks or structures that have been put on top of you. And it's habit to run our decisions through those subconscious bits of programming. And that's how we end up 10 years down the road in a career that we hate because we didn't listen to ourselves along the way and those little warning signals that your intuition was trying to give you. Because again, your intuition is not going to yell at you. Your intuition and your higher self is not going to get in your face about it. They're going to deliver these messages and your intuitive hits subtly. And the practice is to trust them when they show up and to make space for them to show up. So meditation and breath work are key to giving yourself the space to receive messages from your intuition. Moving meditations are really great, and working with a practitioner can really help deepen both of those practices, both meditation and breath work, to give you the space to gain a different perspective on whatever it is that you're wrestling with and trying to discern where your intuition is guiding you in that particular situation. 3 simple practices above and beyond meditation and breath work that you can work into your daily life is just trusting your gut. Practice listening to your gut instincts and acting on them without overthinking or doubting yourself. And start with small decisions daily and build your trust in your intuition. Do I want cereal for breakfast or protein, like eggs and sausage? Oh, the protein's going to feel a lot better. Okay. Then you go and you have protein. Do I want to run or do I want to do yoga today? And giving yourself just a moment to feel a pull internally about what do I want to do? Like, what is going to feel the best in my system today? And go with that. And this is different than giving yourself permission to be lazy. And this is different than saying, oh, well, if I follow my intuition, then I'm never going to do hard work and it's not going to be difficult. No, sometimes following your intuition is a shit ton of work, like starting a podcast. It's been percolating in my mind for over a year, probably 2 years to start a podcast. And finally, I felt ready and got the intuitive hit that now is the time. Now is when you need to do this. Get your poop in a group and let's go do this. And it's a lot of work, but I'm absolutely enjoying I can't lie to you. I'm not enjoying every single minute of it, but I'm absolutely proud of what I'm doing. And I know that it's aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing and the direction my business is supposed to be taking. So when we talk about movement, running might be harder. Running might be more work than doing yoga, but some days your body's going to tell you that you need more work. You need to do that. We've all had a moment where you head to the pantry and your body is going, for the love of God, eat a salad. But your sugar cravings are out of control. So not that I'm trying to put morality on any sort of food choices. I'm not, but you get where I'm going here in that Sometimes your intuition is going to ask you to do a hard thing. And sometimes that hard thing might involve resting when you're not programmed to rest. And sometimes it might involve taking action when that's really scary. The difference is that when your intuition asks you to do something and your immediate reaction is fear, it's because your mind is trying to keep you safe because it's reacting to you sending that email to pitch a new client as the same thing as a bear, because your mind is hardwired for the bear and it takes everything that makes us uncomfortable as a safety issue as opposed to a comfort issue. So pay attention to how your body responds to different situations and different choices, and just allowing yourself the opportunity to go, what do I really want to eat? What do I really want to listen to? What do I really want to do with my free time? What do I want to work on? What do I want to create? And giving yourself the space to really hear those subtle, nuanced messages is the daily practice. One of the other practices that I really, really love is using tarot or oracle cards. We're going to touch on a whole podcast episode on how to really use tarot or oracle cards. But for today's purposes, if tarot is part of your practice, using them to ask yourself questions, to ask for intuitive guidance, you will see and you will receive the messages from the cards that you are ready for and that you need in that moment. So allowing your intuition to guide you through that practice of, what do I need for self-care today? And pulling an oracle card or a tarot card to figure that out is a beautiful way to get some confirmation and use a tool to figure out what your intuition is trying to tell you. And then while you are meditating or during your breathwork session, give yourself the opportunity to pose open-ended questions to your intuition. And then hush your butt and give yourself the chance to receive the answer. Allow the time for that answer to arise slowly and come to you, maybe even after the session, later the next day. Your subconscious and your intuition is still working on the questions that you pose. And over time, you will gain confidence in your intuitive abilities. This is a journey of exploration and self-discovery. Whether you're using your intuition or any of the other tools that I'm going to talk about over the course of the podcast here, remember, it is about exploration and play. There's no wrong way to connect to your intuition. If you want to use a pendulum, if you like the tarot, if you want to read tea leaves, if you want to use any of these other tools, if you want to sit in a salt room, however you want to connect with your intuition, just allow yourself to mess around and experiment and know you're going to get it wrong. You are going to think that your intuition is telling you one thing, and I'm going to change what I was going to say there, because I was going to say your intuition might tell you one thing and then it turns out that that was a bad choice or a wrong choice. I think we need to trust our intuition, because where do we learn our lessons? Do we learn our lessons by getting things perfectly, or do we learn lessons when things all go to shit and we have to figure out how to get out of a tough situation? So I think even if our intuition leads us down a path that goes sideways or turns sour or is kind of a crap situation, the lesson is still there. And it's still in how you interpret it and still in how you apply the things that you do learn to your life and incorporate them and embody them and move forward with it all. One of the biggest places that I see my intuition work for me and with me is in the breathwork sessions that I lead and in the Reiki sessions that I lead. I learned long ago to trust the intuitive hits that I get while facilitating a session like that. I was doing a Reiki session for a woman and she had a trip coming up, and I told her that I don't know what this means, but I saw a peacock feather. It was totally random, right? Like, I don't have peacock feathers in my decor. It's not part of my practice. It's just was random. But as I was giving her Reiki, that's what popped into my mind. Unbeknownst to me, she was a finalist for a TV show. She was in the running, and the trip that she was about to take was to go do in-person interviews with the producers of the Peacock Network. Now, I don't think that show ever got off the ground, and she ultimately wasn't selected, but she had literally just found out what network the show was for hours before I gave her Reiki, and I was able to pick up on it. And in my breathwork sessions, I allow myself to just flow with what feels intuitively aligned with my clients. And this is a practice. This was something I felt completely uncomfortable doing at the beginning, where I was like, you want me to do what? I don't know. I'm not going to know what to say. I'm going to get in there and freeze. And over the course of these years of working with Reiki clients and facilitating breathwork sessions for people, I've just learned to trust my intuition deeply, and that as long as I stay centered, then messages can flow freely through me. And whether that's connecting to my intuition for clients or for myself, staying really, really clear in my connection to source allows me to work with my intuition at a much deeper level. I hope that this episode has helped you start to tease apart the difference between your anxiety and messages from your intuition. We talked about how messages based in fear that get louder and louder and louder are rarely based in intuition. That's usually our conscious mind and our ego trying to get our attention to keep us from being uncomfortable, which, again, it interprets as a problem of safety as opposed to a problem of discomfort. And going forward, day to day in your practice, really just focus on creating space for yourself to receive the messages from your intuition. Give yourself the time and space around small, mundane decisions, allowing yourself to feel into where in your body is that message coming from, asking yourself if it's anxiety related or if you feel like it's coming from your intuition. And if you would like some confirmation, giving yourself the opportunity to pull a tarot card or ask yourself some open-ended questions and sit with the answers that come through. If you are interested in grabbing a breathwork or Reiki session with me where I can unleash my intuition in all of its glory for you, please head to rebbiegoebel.com. You can also head there for more details and show notes. And I hope you tune in next week where we are going to talk about working with energy and Reiki in more detail. Thank you for joining me here today. As you navigate your path, may you continue to honor and trust your intuition, cultivate self-love, and embrace the beauty of your unique journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review From Root to Crown with Rebbe Gobel on your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback is invaluable and helps us reach more wisdom seekers just like you. Stay connected by following us on social media at Rebbe Gobel, and remember, you hold the power to create the life you desire. Until next time, may your roots be strong and may your crown be open to source. Take care and brightest blessings.